This year, third year in a row. Thursday, May 18th, 2023 to order. I'm going to ask Commissioner Neal to lead us in the invocation and Commissioner Strickland to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand, please?
Pray with me, please. Father, first and foremost, we just want to thank you for who you are. We thank you for your great provision. We thank you for the privilege of living in a beautiful area. We thank you for the men and women of the Joint Water and Sewer. We thank you for their dedication and the work that they perform. We just pray your protection over them. For our servicemen and women, we pray your protection there as well as all of our police, firefighters, and EMS. We just thank you, Father, for the privilege of worshiping you, for the privilege of serving our community, and for what we might do moving forward. Go with us through this meeting. May your hand be upon it, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any public comment today. Employee recognition, Mr. Savage is not here today. He had to go have a family emergency. But we have two recognition awards, BGJWSC District 8 awards. Matthew Lane, would you come up? And Donnie, come with him. These are really great recognition. Matthew is the 2023 Top Water Operator of the Year for outstanding and innovative performance in the field of water plant operations in GAP District 8. Andrew, what is District 8?
District 8, if I'm not mistaken, is the coastal region and a portion of South Georgia, basically over to, I think, around Valdosta.
For his performance, the Georgia Association of Water Professionals recognized Matthew Lane. I just wonder.
According to LinkedIn, the Georgia Association of Water Professionals is a non-for-profit association whose chief purpose is to educate and assist.
Well, I like about everything about this job. I like coming here. It's like a big family, you know. It's come in every day, work with people we like to work with, you know, and it's just been a pleasure. It's been a great 7 years, and can't wait to do my next 23.
Yeah, we still learn something every day?
Every day, something new, every day.
Donnie ever teach you anything?
Probably more than I need to know. He's been great.
Which is your favorite well in the system?
Oh goodness. Probably Old Brooklyn.
Well, that's good, because that's the one we're copying for Canal Road.
Yeah, very little goes wrong there, so you don't want to see it much, that's great.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you, appreciate you, Donnie.
Thank you.
Try to get a picture. Get a good picture. There we go.
Gentlemen, Donnie, if you want to jump in there real quick. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Burke, can you tell what goes into that award? I mean, how's it like selected or whatever?
Yeah, so every year we apply, and for the last 3 years have won the Distribution System of the Year award. Last year, as part of the requirements to apply for that award, we were required to nominate an operator in our system for the Top Operator of the Year awards, and these two gentlemen got nominated and were awarded. And they look at the work you've been doing, how long you've been in the system, improvements that you've made, things like that. So these guys are a true testament to the good work we do around here.
Right, quite a compliment. Thank you. Yes.
When you have a well, that provides the water. That's what those people do.
Yep.
We also have a bunch of pipes. We got water to people. So now we have the, Mr. Hall, Alvin Hall, come forward with Jerry, the supervisor. You see your pictures in a lot of these things, don't you?
Yeah.
I made front page this time. Thank you. top distribution operator of the year for outstanding and innovative performance in the field of distribution operations in GAWP District 8. The Georgia Association of Water Professionals recognizes Alvin Hall. I think Alvin's in charge of all that galvanized pipe. Don't we see your picture a lot and all these things?
Yes, sir.
He's always holding that galvanized pipe up for us to look at.
Yes, sir.
Do we almost have it all gone?
I'm working on it.
We're making progress.
We're making great progress, and I'm working on it.
You want to say anything about Alvin?
Don't ask him that.
No, Alvin come in, I remember when he started, me and him joking around a lot. He come in, got started with me on the larger line, and for the first 6 months of his career, he didn't know he had more than 2 inch line. He got started with me, got out here, started picking up on things, and he has taken off and run for a while up at the hydrants, right on through the mains, got him into the wells and everything. He's done an excellent job over the years. Have no complaints with him.
Does he know where all the lines are now?
We're learning some of them. We're finding some.
Found a new sewer line this morning, does that count?
Yeah. He does too.
It's on Lawrence Road.
Didn't know we had a sewer line on water.
Well, we knew we did, but that don't mean we got 2 or 3 out there, who knows?
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Well deserved. Appreciate you teaching him certain things. You still learning?
Every day.
What do you like about your job?
Get wet, get plain water.
All day?
Even on a cold day, I was out here Christmas Day. All day.
We appreciate it.
I had popsicles on my jacket.
See, we offered you dessert.
Yeah.
Come on in, Derek.
Congratulations. Those are really good awards, and hopefully we're gonna get the gold award again this year, or we?
Be gold, hopefully again this year, and then if we get it this year, next year, we will be at the platinum level. Which sounds very impressive. Platinum.
And our sewer system's improving, so.
It is, we're working through a lot of those things, hopefully start getting the awards there, and then every year we'll nominate different operators, and hopefully we can get some of our other really good operators recognized with the same award.
We'll move to the committee updates. We had a facilities committee meeting yesterday. And we're gonna talk about a lot of this infrastructure dedication and also an easement. But we found out that all of those new lines that were put in by developers were actually added 183 new customers to our system. So we're not only picking up new customers when we extend the line, but we're also getting a lot of work from the development that's going on, not only some on St. Simon's, but an awful lot out in the North Mainland area, we understand. Then we got into the water production report. We're averaging about 5 million gallons a day of water that we're producing on the mainland, 3 million on St. Simon's, and about 300,000 at the South Mainland. Academy Creek plant is operating at 41% of its capacity, and it's in permit. Dunbar Creek at 70% of its capacity, and it's in permit, and Southport's at 37% of its capacity. However, that was probably a little high because of a meter issue that we're gonna be fixing at that site. We saw a lot of project photographs of mainly the meter replacements and the galvanized pipe replacement, and also the work going on at Dunbar. We had a good report, and we're ready now to present those infrastructures to the full board to meet, to approve in just a few minutes. We also had a finance meeting. Ms. Stevens, would you give us a report, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At yesterday's Finance Committee, we had a relatively short agenda. We did have 2 approval items that were recommended to make to the full commission for today's consideration. One of them was a policy and purchasing update, which we'll hear here shortly, and the other one was the employee raises for fiscal year 2024. Other than that, we just had a general discussion and update on our financial statements. That pretty much wrapped up yesterday's agenda.
Thank you. We'll move into the approval section. Item 1, minutes from April 20th, 2023 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that they be approved as read.
The second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Next item is minutes from April 23rd Commissioners' Workshop. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes? This was a workshop on the,
Construction standards.
construction standards.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that they be approved as read.
Second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Purchasing policy updates, Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. At the April 2023 Finance Committee meeting, the Finance Committee requested policy changes be made to our purchasing policy for the purchase of individual capital items. Typically, these items are things like vehicles and equipment, lab equipment, things like that. The existing purchasing policy allows for purchases to be made that are listed in the budget, such as these capital items, as long as they came in under the budget listed. The request was to bring these to the commission. The discussion yesterday in the Finance Committee, the existing purchasing policy considers anything more than $5,000 to be a capital item. After discussion yesterday with the Finance Committee, it was recommended that we amend that to say that only items that exceed $25,000 be brought in here from that capital list. So I have adjusted that. If you look at the purchasing policy on the back, page 5 now reads, page 5, section 4A at the bottom, the JWSC budget as adopted serves as authorization to purchase goods and services as required to provide necessary services to the users of the unified system and to purchase capital items with a value less than $25,000. So anything above $25,000 would be brought to you even if approved in the budget with this update. There's also, I removed the word county about 6 times in there to clean up the name in the policy. This was discussed at the Finance Committee and recommended to move forward to the full commission today.
Somebody make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission approve the amended JWSC purchasing policy as presented.
The second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions or comments?
I do have some comments. As I said yesterday, I'm not in favor of doing this, and I thought about it overnight, and I realized what it is I think we're closing the barn door after the horse is out here. I think that probably what we should have done as a commission is we should have had a budget workshop, and we should have gone over in detail before the budget was finalized with the 4 people that are on the committee. We should have gone over these items so that we would feel comfortable, because I feel comfortable enough to go ahead and allow our director to go ahead and make the purchases that have been approved on the budget. For instance, the first thing is coming up in July. It's $140,000 for 2 items. And I know what's going to happen. We're going to say, do we need these? Yes, and the answer is, and it's going to be approved. So it's almost going to be like a rubber stamp. And I think if we go back and think about what happened, there's 4 people on our budget committee here. Let's see, Ms. Wilson, Mr. Owens, Ms. Roberts, and our director. And they all did bring different perspective on what's going on. And I could assure you that the list of capital items was significantly longer at the beginning. And so what's happened is they spent time paring that down. When I was a director of a department for a city, I went out of my way to make sure that the things I put in the budget were not a wish list. And I think this is exactly the case here. This is not a wish list. These are necessities for our utility. So what I think is that if we change the policy now, I think we're locking ourselves in. But the reason why we're doing this is maybe because we didn't get the right information at the beginning. We should have had a workshop before the budget was finalized. We should have sat down with the 4 budget people and looked and seen what they've done to pare this down. And so if we go through this and say, okay, now we're going to start bringing all these items back up every time, and they're all going to, we're just going to say yes. And it's not going to be different because they've already gone through probably thrown out 10, 15 different items that are not priorities. So these are priorities. These are things that need to get done. And I think if we continue to say, okay, let's put these on the agenda and let's you know, and let's let the commission say, okay, yes, approve it. I think they're routinely gonna be approved, and I'm also 100% sure that if our director felt like if it didn't need to be purchased at that time, that he would delay it, and he could even delay it to the next year. So I'm very much opposed at this point to changing the thing, because I think because we probably are not comfortable enough, because we didn't get enough information. And I think we as a body should go back next year. We could even have a workshop now to go over the items, so that you can get an idea of the justification. And I think the four people that are on the committee each bring their own perspective. Ms. Wilson certainly has budget, she lives and breathes budget. Mr. Owens is the fiscal authority here. Ms. Roberts is from administrative end, and Mr. Burrows is fighting ball with his engineering mind. So I think that, you know, it's a good mix, but I think that we don't need to change the policy now. I think what we need to do is gather information so we can feel comfortable with what's going on, because I do already. Because I've been here long enough, I'm comfortable with what the decisions that are being made about purchases. So I don't think changing the policy is gonna benefit us. I think it's gonna lock us into something that's gonna be an automatic rubber stamp every time it comes up. So that's my stance at this point. I would like to just hold off on this and go back and let's do a budget workshop now. I mean, there would be nothing to say, let's go over all these items so we can all be comfortable with the necessity and what they're doing for the benefit of our utility. That's what I have to say.
Mr. Chairman, my approach is that, you know, a budget is a guide, and, you know, we start working on the budget several months before the fiscal year starts. So, you know, we start working on it, say, 3 months before the fiscal year starts, and then you got a fiscal year that starts, and then 12 months later, you know, that's 15 months total, that we might be making decisions 15 months ahead of time, and things change. I mean, something might change, like the Pinova fire, that affects our revenues. I believe that a budget should be a guide, and that we approve that general conceptual budget for the year, but for major purchases, I think we should in real time say, yes, we still believe this makes business sense. I can think, you know, my several years on the commission, we've had several things come before the commission that after collaboration and approach, we decided it wasn't in the best interest, and staff supported those decisions. I just feel like this is an opportunity to have a check and balance. It's very similar to the way our capital decision process is for construction projects. I mean, we're bringing every project in here, regardless of the value, to make sure that it's ratified, that it makes sense, and that the commission supports it for the community and beyond. I just feel like the budget's a guide, that if we don't have a policy that allows us to make decisions mid-year, then at the beginning of the year, we're having to do two things. One, vet a long list of capital items in detail versus just conceptually approve that overall budget. And then also, we're put into a situation where we have to project out what could be different 12 months from now versus having the ability to conceptually say, yes, we agree with all this, let's put it in the budget, but, you know, let's touch base on it real time before actually making the purchase.
I would like to just add one thing. Even though the budget itself is based on projections and revenues, some things are very fixed in the budget. Capital items are not, I mean, they're necessities for our operations. They're not conceptual at all. They're identified, their needs, they're clear-cut needs, and they're priorities. So I don't think that's conceptual at all. I think that we need to kind of separate that out. I mean, you know, we don't know how much revenue we're getting from water or sewer, and sometimes we have emergencies like going on at Crispin Road right now. We're spending a significant amount of money on. But the capital items are still going to be the same. They're not really floating, they're not, you know, and the only thing is they might be delayed. And the other thing is if we delay purchasing them, it may affect the price, especially in this current environment. And there's nothing to say that our director couldn't go ahead and load up all the capital items right at the beginning of the budget and put them in for approval, you know, and purchase them while the pricing is good. So, I mean, it's kind of a balance, but like I say, I think the commissioners should feel comfortable with the fact that these items have been identified, narrowed down, and prioritized, and that they're a necessity. And, you know, rubber stamping them as they come up, which I feel like I would be doing. I mean, if we come in July, and Andrew already said that he's got something to bring in July, what am I gonna say? Well, do you really need to have that? I know the answer is gonna be yes, or he wouldn't be bringing it to us. And he also wouldn't put it in the budget if it wasn't a necessity. So I think there's kind of a balance we have to have here, but I think we're tying hands here and maybe slowing down the process maybe end up costing the utility more money because we don't get the pricing in time.
Andrew, how many things are itemized in the budget?
The only thing that's, well, the only thing that's expressly itemized are the capital items. I think this year there's 6 or 8. We had to scale back our capital purchase list this year just because of increasing costs for chemicals and power and all these sorts of things. Last year, it was more 20, 25 things. So that's a more traditional year. This year, it's been significantly scaled back because of other needs.
I just don't see this as a huge hindrance to operation. Granted, I'm not in the government side of things, as much in normal everyday business, but in most instances, there's a capital threshold that doesn't require, board approval, and you define that threshold, whatever it might be. Yesterday, we talked about 25,000, Mr. Burrows, updated the policy to reflect 25,000. Certainly don't want to be sitting in here arguing over $2,000 items, which would meet the capital threshold anyhow. But I certainly agree there needs to be a threshold. We defined it at 25, but that needs to be a different number. So be it. But I believe that, that the board should be ratifying large capital purchases throughout the year.
And I think the finance committee yesterday changed that number from 5,000 to 25,000.
We did, Justin.
So, any other commissioners have any other questions?
I would think in that vein of changing it, I think 25 may be too low, but I wasn't sitting in finance, and I'm not trying to Monday morning quarterback this thing, but I think at the county we've gone to 50,000 simply because the price of everything. But to address yours, I think I understand your argument totally and agree with the argument, but the public still expects us to review and be accountable to the public on these things, and the ratification of them at the time of purchase, I think is important to the public. So.
And 25 is certainly an arbitrary number. In some instances, probably is small. I think we kind of pick that based off of other people's experience on what other large organizations in the community kind of do, maybe even large organizations. But it's an arbitrary number. I mean, whether it's 25, 30, 40, 50, and whatever. I think 25.
There's nothing to say that we can't revisit this,
If it becomes an onerous process.
I mean, there's 8 items this year. I think if we stick with 25, keep it the way it is. If it passes, I don't think it's gonna slow us down.
And I think your point is valid. I mean, there's a reason there's a board. We do have a check and balance, for lack of a better term, and that's not a distrust of staff. That's not anything. It's just a normal course of doing business. And most every business has some sort of purchasing policy that has limitations and has.
And I think we agree and echo your sentiment that the staff that put this list together is certainly competent.
Absolutely.
And has our confidence in them.
Yeah.
But I think the public would appreciate the fact that we do review it, and,
Oh, yeah, I'm not against review, but maybe I think we should do the review before we get the budget finalized. That way, if we went over these items, then we would hear specifics about them, and we would feel comfortable with them, and then we could okay them at that time.
So we'll spend the same amount of time on the 8 items, all at one time, as we would just throughout the course of the year. I just think the closer you can do it to real time, the more sense it makes, and the more ability you have to be fluid.
And the more accurate the price is gonna be too, is a concern there.
Yeah, that is a concern, absolutely. So,
I will say, to Commissioner Cook's point, yes, we do review capital items, and I think we approved 8 this year, and I think the superintendent submitted something like 60 requests, so we go through a lot of whittling down already, but certainly happy to bring these back to the commission for your review at that time.
I think the vetting process is working well. I mean, there's no question about that.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 5-1.
thank you for your comments.
Next item is fiscal year 2024 employee raise proposal. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. In years prior to FY '23, what we're currently in now, the way we have done employee raises for several years was to apply cost of living raise adjustment consistent with the increase in the consumer price index plus the ability to achieve a merit raise up to a combined amount of both raises of 5% per year. In fiscal year '23, with the CPI increasing significantly, the commission graciously awarded a cost of living adjustment for hourly staff members of 6.88%, but no merit increases were available above that for hourly staff members. Salaried staff received a half that percentage for cost of living, but did have the ability to achieve a merit increase. Based off of costs for next year, we were able to budget a 2.5% wage increase for our staff. Reviewing several options, staff recommends we move forward with just applying a 2.5% cost of living adjustment July 1st to all employees. The total wage increase based off of current wages is $182,452.26, with the average employee receiving an increase of 65 cents per hour.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move to the Brunswick Water Sewer Commission approve the 2.5% cost of living adjustment to employee wages effective July 1st, 2023.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Burke. What's our situation with our self-insurance, our fund? How are we doing on that?
Costs are closer to in line with what we budgeted this year. I don't know if that's because we're getting better at budgeting that number or what's going on, but we're gonna be around 1.7 million this year. The previous 2 years, we were around 1.4, 1.5. So we were at 1.8 or 1.9 before we swapped over. So we're still below where we're at, but starting to creep back up a little bit with this year's totals.
We were at 1.8 before we started,
Before we started.
before we switched over, and on the way up.
And on the way up yesterday.
Yeah,
We were
okay.
projecting at least a 10% increase if we had stuck with the previous plan that year.
Right. Yeah. All right.
We
Thank you.
are, we will be bringing the health insurance proposal for next year to the June meeting.
Mr. Burris, how many employees does this affect?
We have 154 positions, but we have currently 136 active employees.
10,000 a year. A lot of healthcare.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Next item is dedication of private infrastructure and easements. Mr. Klein?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This agenda item is comprised of 5 different dedications, and I'll quickly walk through here and give a brief description of each. Janice still has the conch here. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer in more detail if necessary. Okay, the first item for consideration is 235 Kingsway Gravity Sewer. It is simply a dedication of infrastructure, no easement involved with that. That was an extension of Gravity Sewer to connect a home off of Kingsway onto our system. So that brings formerly a water-only customer to now become a water and sewer.
Now, typically for a single customer, it does not require dedication, but a large portion of this line was ran in the public right of way.
That's correct. Okay. Second item is St. Francis Xavier Catholic School addition. If you've been around the St. Francis Catholic Church area near Hanover Square within the city of Brunswick, you may have noticed the new school addition that's over there. This improvement was a cooperative water main extension with Joint Water. When I say cooperative, Joint Water provided the 12-inch material to upsize what they had planned would be a 4-inch extension to their new location. So we provided materials. They were going to put the trench in the ground and install it anyway. It was a good cooperative move. And this facilitated a small piece of the Bay Street water main replacement project as well. So now, as St. Francis Xavier School did install that, they now, by process, are dedicating that to us as public. Okay. Third item is Tanglewood Subdivision Phase 2B, dedication of infrastructure. And Tanglewood Phase 2B is a privately developed project, residential subdivision, that adds 39 new customers to our rolls. Fourth item is Walker Point Phase 1. Walker Point is also a residential development. And that does include one small easement for a sewer main connection. And that brings 105 new customers to our system. And the fifth item is the Estates Golden Isles, another residential development, dedication infrastructure and easement, brings 39 customers to our system. And that are the 5 items, and I'm happy to show on GIS if there's any interest to see exactly where these are.
Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve these projects with associated dedicated easements.
A second? Motion and second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Next item is easement acquisition, Adams Drive. Mr. Donovan.
JWSC has been asked to extend a water line down Adams Drive, which is right in the middle of St. Simon's Island on the east side of Frederick Road. We're going to abandon existing galvanized lines and run a new PVC main to service 5 lots. We had a difficult time securing these easements, but we were able to work these out with the current homeowners. And the staff reviewed everything, needs their approval.
We have the potential to get 4 new customers with this extension. Existing galvanized line, there was a new customer, was gonna be requesting a meter, and we didn't feel comfortable tapping that old galvanized line, so we wanted to run a new line and get the easements cleared up while we did that.
I think that is a key point, though. It's not really a request for us to run a line. It's a request to tie onto an existing line, and we feel like that existing line needs to be replaced.
Right.
So we're replacing that existing line. That's accurate?
That's correct, yes, sir.
I'll move that we, that Brunswick Joint Water and Sewer Commission accept the Adams Drive easements and authorize the chairman to execute the acceptance of these easements.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions?
Who did the replacement? Was it
We will do the replacement in-house. Alvin and Derek, they'll put the line in.
the G team's going?
Yeah, they're gonna go out there and get that done, yes.
Okay.
As soon as we get these easements, they're putting that
I'm
water
calling
line in
the
the ground.
galvanized, the G team from now on.
Is there room in the easement to put in a sewer line in the future?
Yes, so they're gonna put in a the customer's gonna install low pressure that's only gonna serve them right now, but it will be in our easement. It'll be dedicated to us. So that's the difference. If they had just wanted water themselves, they would have had to run their own water line, but since we already had an existing main, we replaced that. There is no sewer there. They're paying to install the sewer main out
And pay the taps.
and paying the connection fees, yes, sir.
So they're paying, they're not paying a water tap because they're already a water customer, but they will pay a sewage tax.
That's correct.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Executive Director update. Mr.
Yes.
Burris.
Yes, sir. At the last meeting, we had considerable discussion about the ordinance revisions that we had requested with the city and the county. Well, I'm happy to say those have all been approved and are in effect now. So the changes to the deposits and leak adjustments that we had talked about are now in effect. So passing that along. And then our annual rates and budget town hall will be June the 6th at the casino on St. Simon's Island and June the 7th at Howard Coffin. Both of those will be at 6 o'clock. So I will make sure Ms. Janice sends you an invite to those if you want to attend. But of course, we'll go through the budget and rates for next year, but given the opportunity, we also discuss ongoing projects and customer service initiatives we have with our customer base.
Commissioners' discussion.
I just want to say I get a number of questions and comments from my constituents in the community, and I forward those to Janice for almost immediate resolution. I want to thank you and your team for how you handle our customers out there.
Thank you.
Makes my job real easy. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Chairman's update. I want to just appreciate all the commissioners' comments today on the various issues we discussed. And I also want to commend our staff. I mean, we had the the Georgia Rural Water Association conference last week, and I saw a whole lot of people from Brunswick-Glynn County over there. And they were learning, and they were paying attention, and they were walking around the floor, talking to vendors and everything. So it was a well-attended conference, and it helps those people get their certifications and everything too. So they not only have to work and work in ditches and get wet, but they also have to attend things like this. And so our people do have a passion for work, and I really appreciate that.
One of our employees did win a snazzy pair of flip-flops that looked like fish, so. Not work appropriate, but he can wear them around the house.
Is there a need for
Gotta
executive
guess.
session tonight, Dave? There's no need for executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion, second. All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.